Welcome back to EarthX 2026. And today we have such a special session for you. You're in for a real treat because we are here with Jim Keys, who is the former CEO of Blockbuster, former CEO of 7-Eleven, and author of Education is Freedom. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Great to be here, Paul.
So there's so much to talk about in so little time. But what was interesting is the other night for opening night of EarthX, uh, there is a wonderful uh, speech that you gave right before we had Jeff Skunk Baxter, who's the guitar player of Steely Dan and Doobie Brothers, play a beautiful piece for us. And then you came and gave a prayer, which is interesting. And it was about perception versus perspective. I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Thanks for asking. It was actually the request to do the invocation,
Yes.
and when I first got the call, I said, "You sure, me?" And what I decided to do instead of making it a traditional prayer, especially since we're here at EarthX, I wanted to reflect on the Artemis II mission. So I opened with a photograph from Apollo 8 and Bill Anders, who took this beautiful, iconic shot of the Earth from the other side of the moon as they were coming across the moon, and it was the first time really we as Earthlings had ever seen our own home, and but it wasn't that photograph. As I mentioned, it wasn't the photograph that made all the difference. It was Bill saying just off the cuff, he said, we came to explore the moon, but we discovered the Earth.
Hmm.
And it's such a beautiful statement. And it actually inspired, I think, could have inspired the creation of Earth Day just 2 years later. In 1970, we began to celebrate April 22nd as Earth Day. And so I started with that, with this iconic photo of the moon. But then I talked about the Artemis flight and how each of those astronauts experienced something that everyone from Neil Armstrong to William Shatner, when he was on the Blue Origin, came down in tears. And he talked about the overview effect. And I described it. I actually put it on the cover of my book on purpose. And this is a photograph of the Earth with a constellation of satellites that connect us.
Hmm.
And it's the idea of being a connected Earth where the overview effect really represents perspective. It represents stepping back from this beautiful planet and seeing it for the first time as one beautiful home where we as Earthlings are all in this together. And so I described what each of the astronauts on Artemis 2 thought when they saw this, and it was some beautiful things. It was Christina Koch who said that the Earth looked like it was covered in a contact lens, and that thin blue line that separates us from the vast blackness of the universe, she said, was just such a fragile piece of atmosphere that we have to protect. And it was just a beautiful thing. And Victor Glover, when he was asked to deliver an Easter message, he hadn't prepared anything. He said, I haven't really prepared anything profound, but he said, as I look down upon the Earth, I see this beautiful planet and I realize we're all in this together. We are all as one. Another very beautiful observation. So I described that as the difference between perception, which is the things that make us angry, the things we see on the internet, the half-truths that we pick up and we don't, as humans, use our critical thinking to determine are they true or not. And climate change is one of those perceptions that will trigger people into anger. Well, I have a saying that goes back 2,000 years, a guy named Ibn Rushd, that ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hatred, and hatred leads to violence, a very negative circle. That's what perception will cause if we as humans don't stop and think, what I just saw may have just been an opinion. It's not necessarily the truth. Perspective is when we as humans step back and use our critical thinking to really understand. And if we can all as humans replace perception with perspective, the overview effect, what the astronauts see, then it truly can lead to peace on earth. And that was my prayer, in effect, that we as humans would step back and use our perspective. And I just happened to have Reed Weissman's image that he took on his iPhone of the moon, but it was Earth set, not Earth rise, as Bill Anders had, but they caught the Earth setting behind the moon. And it was a sideways image, and my assistant helped me. We rotated it so it looked like a sunset, where the Earth was actually setting below the surface of the moon. And I showed that image as I delivered the invocation for the Monday evening of EarthX. And then the best part of it wasn't my invocation. The best part was that I happened to be sitting with Skunk,
Yes.
who then got up, with Jeff, got up, and he played this beautiful piece talking about how music is really frequency and vibration. And the crew from the back, and Jeff didn't even know this, put on that Earth set image as he was playing this beautiful piece, and it was just really made the evening. It was a great start to a beautiful dinner.
It sure was. And here we are on Earth Day. It's a beautiful day. There's some brilliant, beautiful minds that are here, and I know you've been here before. It's a wonderful place to connect with people. And who do you look to connect with here?
It is. Well, first of all, I'm grateful to Trammell.
Yes.
Earth Day began in, as I said, in 1970, when we designated April 22nd as Earth Day. But 15 years ago, Trammell had the vision to be able to say, yeah, it's fine we say it's Earth Day, but why don't we bring people together from all over the world? Let's do something about it. Let's just not talk about it. Let's not celebrate it one day a year. Let's do something. Let's bring together the best minds everywhere in the world to rethink the importance of this planet and how we can all contribute to making this Earth a better place.
Mm-hmm. Well said. So there are a lot of companies that are trying to do the right thing, and I know you being at the head of 7-Eleven and a Blockbuster, at those times, the companies that wasn't as big of a priority, but I know that was something that was in your view. What were you able to do at the time to be able to help environmentally? Because it's a little bit easier now, but
It's a little easier now. And I was a beneficiary of the Apollo era.
Yes.
Where I do believe that iconic view of the Earth from space gave us a different perspective way back then. And so as a CEO, I saw my responsibility as being something greater than just shareholder value. And I think many of my peers see it as in the same way, that sometimes the CEOs get a bad rap. They're just about making money. Yes, technically in graduate school of business, we learn that it's all about shareholder value. But I've discovered that shareholder value and social good are not mutually exclusive. You can actually make a lot of money by doing good things for your customers, for your stakeholders out there, and it's appreciated and it's good for shareholder value. So in fact, this recognition came from a guy, I know Hunter Hunt is on the agenda here at EarthX. He's kind enough to come out every year. His dad, Ray Hunt, was one of my mentors as a young CEO. And Ray took me aside early in my career and said, Jim, you can do more good from the helm of a public company than, I don't care how rich you are and write big checks. You can never do as much good for people and for humanity as you can from the helm of a public corporation, because you have the privilege of being able to have a microphone that people will listen to and to have the ability to create change. And so I learned from some of the best.
Yes. Well, and there's a lot of people that can learn from you. We've had so many students here, and there'll be students watching this. So, what kind of advice would you give them if they want to go in the business world and achieve the top level like you have?
It's a pretty simple set of recommendations. Starts with education is
Yes.
freedom. This idea that education is freedom came because I grew up literally as one of those kids with no running water and no chance for success. I was told by everyone around me, "Who do you think you are? You know, you're poor. You can't go to college. You can't be anything. Just suck it up and go back to the factory where your dad worked and your brothers work, and that's what you are." And I refuse to accept that. And for a whole host of reasons, and maybe it's because I was the last of six siblings growing up in a three-room shack, literally with no running water. But I saw them become victims of their own environment. And I heard my dad, who used to say, I don't even know what to tell you. He had never made it past the sixth grade.
Mhm.
But he said, somewhere in those books is the answer. Because the people who have freedom, and it was important, he didn't say money. Money was irrelevant to him.
Mm.
When you're poor, who cares? Money is just a thing. But freedom is what he wanted. And he used to tell me that what I want for you, son, is the ability to travel the world. In World War II, he had gone to the Burma Road, and it wasn't his role in the US Army, it was his ability to interact with locals, to see their culture. And he would just tell stories of the beautiful Burmese people and how he just wanted me to have that experience and to be able to travel the world and meet people from different parts of the world. And that was the freedom he was after. And somewhere in those books, I would find that freedom. Man, was he right?
So right. And of course, I know that a lot of people would be perfectly happy to achieve what you've achieved, but you have not stopped working. You're doing key development right now. Tell us about what you're working on right now.
A whole host of things. My number one objective is to help use the huge benefit I have, which is, and I never saw this coming,
Yeah.
the legacy of 7-Eleven and Blockbuster, two iconic brands that wherever I travel in the world, people are like, "Oh, I grew up with Slurpees," or I grew up with Blockbuster. And it's just this nostalgic warmth that people have for those two brands gives me a voice
Yeah.
and an opportunity. So I'm able to reach young people in a way that others maybe don't have a chance to do. When I speak, young people say, "Oh, I want to hear this guy. He had 7-Eleven. He must be, guy sold Slurpees." And I'm able to convey this message that, hey, kids, and kids could be anyone. I mean, I'm still a kid. Hey, kids, um, we're in this together. And by the way, the cycle of fear is correctable because fear comes from ignorance, and ignorance is curable. So cure it. Don't let others tell you who you are. Don't let others tell you what you should think. Learn and keep learning and learn every single day of your life. Ignite that curiosity because the more you learn, the more you can do. And by the way, you as an individual, as the cover of my book says, the future is in your hands. If each of us individually decided, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm not going to subject myself to perceptions, I am going to take charge of my own life. And if we all did that, we could replace that cycle of fear and ignorance and anger and violence and crime and poverty and all the other stuff that comes with it, terrorism. We could replace that with a world where we have knowledge and understanding and hope and compassion and peace ultimately. And I know this sounds Pollyannish, especially coming from a CEO, right? Hey, I want peace on earth. It is so possible if we just light up our human capabilities to think and to learn and get out of our caveman selves that cause all these silly behaviors. We have fight and flight characteristics that kept us from being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger as caveman, but they show up in the boardroom. We don't have a natural predator in the boardroom that I recall, but I've seen that caveman behavior in the boardroom. There's no place for it at all.
Absolutely. Speaking of nostalgia, and we all miss Blockbuster. I think sometimes we think about it'd be nice to go to the video store. I apologize. I still owe you some late fees. I'm just
All
joking.
right, forgiveness, my son. You have total forgiveness. I will absolve you of all your late fee crimes. How's that?
Thank you. Well, hey, it's story time. So you know my co-host Drew Pearson
Yeah.
famously caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame, and this is the 50th anniversary of the Hail Mary. And so,
When?
yes,
This year?
this last year,
Oh, I've got
December.
to call Roger. Roger Staubach's a dear friend. He's
That's
on the
right.
other end of that Hail Mary.
Yes. Well, we talk about Hail Mary moments, and this is important in the environment too. But the moment in your life or career where you just had to go for it and it worked out for you. Can you share us a good story? I mean, I know you've had many. You didn't have running water as a kid, so
Oh yeah,
gosh.
yeah. I've had a few Hail Marys. Probably Blockbuster, and like Roger and I share notes sometimes about how CEOs back then didn't make as much as they do now, and like
Yeah.
quarterbacks back then. and when Roger sometimes, because everybody uses the Hail Mary as being ubiquitous now and it's like, wait, I did that. Roger did that, and so Blockbuster was one of my Hail Marys, and people really don't understand the Blockbuster story. It is a great example of the vulnerability to perception,
Hmm.
because I guarantee you the perception of 99% of the people out there in the world is, oh, Blockbuster didn't keep up with technology. Netflix crushed them as a result. Totally false.
Yeah.
Blockbuster was actually ahead of its time in technology. Sometimes being too early is as bad as being too late.
Yeah.
But Blockbuster, as early as 2000, 7 years before I got there,
Yes.
had a deal with Enron. And it sounds crazy, but
Yeah.
Enron had bandwidth.
Hmm.
They had bought Spectrum, they had bought bandwidth. And that was a marriage made in heaven. But then, of course, we know what happened with Enron. It was a shame. But Blockbuster envisioned streaming all the way back to 2000,
Hmm.
which is 10 years before it was really practical. When I arrived in 07, the very first thing I did was to buy a streaming company called MovieLink. We had streaming, we had new releases, which nobody had, digitized, we had them exclusively. We had a chance to lock up all of the old content exclusively, and we had a potential deal with Google to be able to be our distribution partner. Everything, YouTube would be everything free. They had just bought YouTube. Everything free YouTube, everything paid Blockbuster side by side. It would have been like the Blockbuster store, a one-stop shop for the aggregation of all content that we all wish was out there today. But here's what happened, and this is what everyone forgets. This is in 2007 when I joined the company. 2008, all of a sudden the financial markets collapse. Lehman Brothers fails. GM and Ford are going to look for a bailout from the White House, and no one was going to bail out Blockbuster.
No.
So I had to get back in the huddle and call a new play. The play was no longer let's transform the company into streaming. The play is now let's save this thing. Let's throw the Hail Mary because we have got to save all of these stores and all of these jobs, and we've got to live to see another day. And so I dropped back and threw the Hail Mary, and the Hail Mary was find a strategic partner. Google would have been that ideal strategic partner, but when rumors came out about Blockbuster's bankruptcy, they pulled the deal.
Wow.
It was a signed deal. My board signed it. It was sitting with their board of directors. We were a week away from completing the deal of a century that would have transformed the way we see movies today.
Goodness.
But it didn't happen. What do? Do I go back to the huddle and say, oh, woe is me, I'm a victim, and then quit? No, I stayed in the game, toughed it out, threw the long ball. Dish Network caught it.
Yes.
They were a good distribution partner. Their vision was actually to bypass the internet and go straight to streaming via your cell phone.
Huh.
Now they had acquired much of that spectrum that I mentioned with Enron. So they had bandwidth, and we had movies, and their vision was let's go Let's just go straight to cell phones and make it fast. So they wanted to go straight to like 5 or 6G back in 2009,
Wow.
2010. We're barely to 5G now. So their vision was sound, but the release of that spectrum got caught up in government approvals, et cetera, for whatever reason. It couldn't happen, and they eventually tired of waiting and put the brand on the shelf and said, we'll go back at it another day. But that's the real story
Wow.
of what happened with Blockbuster, very different from the perception.
Yeah.
And it is, in fact, the Hail Mary, because the easy thing to do would have been just go to the bench. I didn't cause this problem. I'm just going to go quit. But I stayed in the game, threw the Hail Mary, Dish caught it. We lived to see another day. And again, they had another bite at the apple that could have made Blockbuster that aggregation partner that would have made all of our lives better, because it would have made it much easier to see the favorite movies you want to see today.
Wow. Well, you definitely got that spark, that success mindset, that thing in you. What do you tell yourself in the morning that kind of keeps you on that right path?
Well, a couple of things. One, I truly believe that gratitude is fundamental. I had the privilege of spending a little time with the Dalai Lama at the Aspen Institute. He was giving a speech, and I was sitting there talking to him, and I learned that his energy, that what it comes from, is his meditation. He meditates from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. I don't do that, I assure you, but it's all about gratitude and joy. And when he comes out, I mean, it's palpable. It's just, whoa. I mean, this is like the happiest man you've ever met. And so when I wake up every morning, like I said, I don't go into 4 hours of meditation, but my first thought when waking up is, man, I am the luckiest man alive. I am so grateful for what I have, especially from where I came, you know, and I live in this beautiful home that, you know, my home was condemned when I was a child. And so I just, every minute that I am able to walk on this planet, I am grateful for. And one last thing, then I say, now what's today gonna hold? Because every day for me represents a new adventure.
Yes, absolutely. And environmentally, we can all do better. You have any quick things that you do that we can share with everyone?
Oh yeah, no, I've got the absolute secret to fixing this
Okay.
whole mess.
Say-
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The audience is hanging on every word. No, this is true. We get caught up in words that trigger perception.
Yes.
Remember when we had global warming? You just say global warming and you can see people tense up, right? The very idea just makes people mad. And here's the irony. I step back and look at this and I go, wait a minute now. And the same people sometimes get not quite as mad, but they get a little about climate change, right? And here's the irony. Half of the people that are so mad are hunters, fishermen, environmental people that live in the wilderness. And you go, wait. Why are you mad about talking about climate change? You're an environmental user. You love the outdoors. You love the wilds. You should be the biggest advocate for protecting the earth, right? But they get caught up in the ideology, in the tribe, because the tribe says climate change bad, you know, evil. They're trying to destroy our economics, et cetera, and that's all perception. But that perception doesn't need to be there. And both sides are guilty, by the way, because you've got certain environmentalists that will go to war over, you know, protecting, you know, I'm gonna die hugging this tree. Okay, well, chill out a little bit. There's probably another solution. And if we can all just step back from our perceptions that are making us so mad and recognize that we're falling into that caveman brain,
Yes.
that reaction of anger and resistance and fighting, and instead step back and say, oh, wait a minute, you're a hunter, you're a fisherman. I'll bet clean water is really important to you. You want to eat those fish, don't you? Yes, of course. Well, let's find a solution to clean water. Well, isn't clean air important? Yes. Well, let's find solutions. And if we could just take this overview effect and all of us, both sides of the argument, and eliminate our perceptions and or eliminate our perceptions and replace them with a different perspective about what is it we're trying to accomplish,
Mm,
there's not a problem humanity cannot solve. That's
yeah.
the irony. Instead of fighting, let's collaborate. Let's figure out solutions, not more things to fight about.
Yeah, so well said. Jim, it's been an absolute honor to be here with you today. We've learned so much and we could talk all day, but we know we got to let you go because you've got things to run. So we want to thank you for being with us. And please stay tuned because we've got more for you at EarthX next.